walk that fine line between being sensitive to the times and still taking a traditionally conservative position on guns.
So the president held his own listening session at the White House today, Jeremy Diamond, and this thing that he mentioned about the possibility of teachers being armed and the coach who was there at the school, if the coach had been armed, the possibility of that is really raising some eyebrows. Watch this.
If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave. Saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had a run. He would have shot, and that would have been the end of it. And this would only be, obviously, for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it would be, it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone.
Not that he is going to implement this, but again, as I said, it raised some eyebrows. What is being made of this moment, Jeremy?
It did raise some eyebrows, and we saw even some opposition to this in the very room where the president was talking about this idea, with at least one person in that room speaking out against that. But this is not a new idea for this president. You may recall, Don, during the campaign, the president was talking about gun-free zones and saying that gun-free zones in schools were like, quote-unquote, candy to bad individuals. And he proposed then during the campaign arming teachers, arming specifically trained people in schools to be able to respond to these kinds of shootings. But we saw, not only during the president's own town hall at the White House, but also during CNN's town hall this evening in Florida, adamant opposition to this proposal, not only from the sheriff in that county who you heard opposing that idea, you even heard opposition from Senator Marco Rubio, who on stage said that he didn't support it when he was confronted with the idea by a teacher. But this is not a new proposal. What is new from what we saw from the president today was a willingness to kind of hear different ideas. Typically in the wake of these shootings, we've seen the president repeatedly come out and very strenuously kind of shut down the debate on gun laws in America. And this time we've seen the president show much more of a willingness to actually discuss and debate some of these ideas today at the White House for over an hour with the cameras rolling. That was very different, where we saw the president engaging with these ideas. We didn't necessarily see him move on specific proposals, but we did at least see him listen and engage with those ideas. The question now is what will actually be politically feasible for him to entertain. We did hear him at the end suggest an openness to this possibility of raising the age for gun purchases, an idea that Senator Rubio endorsed this evening. The question is whether he can actually get there when it comes to legislation, going beyond this idea of simply strengthening background checks, which he has already expressed his support for.
Dana Lash of the NRA was also at the town hall tonight, and here she is talking about the system being flawed. Watch this.
He was able to pass a background check because we have a system that's flawed. The Sutherland Springs murderer was able to pass a background check because the Air Force did not report that record.
I think I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick and remind you that the question is actually, do you believe it should be harder to obtain these semi-automatic weapons and modifications to make them fully automatic, such as bump stocks?
Well, I think the ATF is deciding about bump stocks right now. The president ordered the DOJ to look into it.
I'm asking your opinion as a representative of the NRA.
That's what the NRA's position has been. The NRA came, I'm talking for them. These are the 5 million members that I'm here representing.
So, David, earlier I had a student on who attended the town hall, was on the stage, and he said, and I believe the quote is, that Dana Lash and the NRA are living in a fantasy world.
David Rhodes.
David Rhodes.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I have two Davids. Sorry, David Rhodes.
I agree. I mean, it's just, we're supposed to have a system that can track, I don't know, 100 million American adults and know which one is mentally ill and which one's not. Also, we can, have this kind of arms race where everyone can have their own assault rifle with more and more bullets and, faster and faster firing. So again, this was this tone of somehow sort of blaming law enforcement and blaming others for this situation. It's just unrealistic. Why do people need these kind of weapons? Pistols and shotguns. you know, it's fine, but it's just, this is such a powerful, dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
And one thing we don't know, and what we haven't heard, is what people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and others in Congress, you know, whose voices haven't been amplified in this. It's all fine for Marco Rubio and for Dana and others to, you know, come down and sort of, you know, make their positions. But in terms of the, you know, the dealing that goes on, sort of the quid pro quo up on Capitol Hill, especially where a lot of these members are very dependent on the NRA and on NRA money.
Marco Rubio said they're not dependent on the money. I had
they're dependent on the money.
Who said, oh, the money doesn't mean that these people are bought and paid for, saying that I was insinuating, and that's not it. I've simply put up on the screen how much money they've gotten from the NRA.
Yeah.
Rubio got $3.2 million in the last 3 years, an A+ from the NRA.
Right, and just like Donald Trump had his talking points in his hand, you know, there. I mean, Marco Rubio had his talking points when Cameron Kasky put that question to him tonight about would he take NRA money, and sort of suggesting that, you know, the NRA doesn't pay him, he doesn't subscribe to their views just because of money. They're supporting his agenda. That is, as we know, that is a talking point.
Yeah, but he showed up, and you say, well, that maybe has more to do with him wanting to be president because the governor didn't.
Right. No, he's absolutely running. You know, the governor's term limited. Marco Rubio's, you know, future very much. He's got a real political future. He wants one, you know, on the national stage. And this is, look, but the reality is, during the presidential race, you had the Paris attacks, you had the San Bernardino shootings, you had the Pulse nightclub attacks in Orlando, and it was Donald Trump who was engaging the most in a lot of those discussions. But from his point of view, it was about arming people. Yes. It wasn't Marco Rubio.
So, and that makes me wonder, how is he, if he's going to change his position on assault weapons, or on what is that going to do to his base and everything that he promised the NRA during the campaign? We'll talk about that when we come back. Stick around. When we come back, much more on our town hall tonight. Students, parents, teachers all demanding that our leaders take action to finally do something to stop gun violence before more innocent Americans lose their lives.
Dial your binge watching up to 11.